2019 wasn't a good year for WWE fans who just so happened to be gamers. With the splitting of Ukes and 2K games, Visual Concepts was left to pick up the ball and trying to make the latest installment in the WWE 2K series practically from scratch. The end result was a sheer disappointment of an experience that saw fans turn against the developers and publisher for not delaying what should have been an evolution of the mostly fun WWE 2K19. Deciding it was for the best for the WWE 2K franchise, the developers changed their approach for 2020 by presenting a game that embraced the absurdity of pro wrestling and WWE in general, WWE 2K Battlegrounds. Coming back with the official WWE 2K games as the players knew it, Visual Concepts promised a game that hit different, with more modes, including a rendition of General Manager mode and 2K Showcase, alongside a revamped game engine. As per the norm, WWE 2K22 provides a hefty trophy and achievement list demanding the player take part in all the modes. 2K Showcase returns this year, presenting an abridged look at the career of Rey Mysterio, featuring its stereotypical objective-fueled design alongside sit-down interviews and narration moments from the mode's focal point, being integrated into the action. The 2K Showcase can last about 5 hours if everything goes right for the player, as none of the objectives are optional in this iteration. My Rise takes the place of My Career, with players having the opportunity to control a male or female created wrestler that is solely connected to said mode. Through various optional stories, players will inevitably have their character reach the figurative mountaintop of every brand, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, a feat that can take someone over 20 plus hours if they attempt to complete all the side missions and challenge matches. Another replacement in name but not necessarily in full presentation is My Faction, an expanded version of 2K Towers from the previous game. Players will use earned in-game currency or spend real money for other digital dollars to purchase card packs. These cards have color-coded rarity stats that play into the fact gamers will actually play these wrestlers represented via said cards. The grind-heavy My Faction mode demands that players log in weekly, if not daily, depending on their want to gather cards, and attain several achievements and trophies associated with the online dedicated single-player mode. And then there's Mygm mode, a management simulator that is both expanded and dumbed down compared to its spiritual predecessor, and inspiration not seen in a WWE game since SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. A 15-week run of Mygm showed the developers' decisions in regards to handling this much requested mode were both wise and left something to be desired. The same can be stated about the Returning Universe mode, where the only major addition is playing through the mode as a single character without the ability to simulate or skip that wrestler's matches. There's also the ability to fight others online, with this iteration not forcing gamers to slog through dedicated online fights that are usually hampered by lag and input delay for trophies or achievements. As of this time, a week after its release, it's impossible to fully complete WWE 2K22 due to the aforementioned My Faction criteria for completion. Sadly, there's a good chance very few will have the Platinum Trophy or 1000 Gamer Score by the time WWE 2K23 hits store shelves. The gameplay seen in the last 6 iterations of WWE 2K games featuring a more simulated style of wrestling, unlike the arcade nature of the earlier SmackDown games during the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 eras, has been mostly removed and or modified. Gone are the reversal limiter meter, strict stamina system, multiple mid-match minigames like the rock, paper, scissors, collar, and elbow tie-up sequence, and in general, a lot of what made the previous iterations unique for all the right and wrong reasons. In its place is the return of a strike-based system like the old SmackDown games, with grappling being more of an exclamation point on the action. Players can string together combos featuring light and heavy strikes topped off by a quick grapple. That's not to mean players can grab an opponent and toss them around the ring without punching and kicking them first. Using the grapple button, no matter the situation, the player's character will grab their target and wait for the controller to hit a button input, heavy or light strike, alongside a direction via the analog stick. Double tapping the grapple button will allow players to whip an opponent into the ropes or against the turnbuckles. A big change to what the series once was is the implementation of mostly infinite reversals. Players can pull off reversals at almost any time, including when someone attempts a signature maneuver or a finisher, without the fear of using up that last bar in the reversal meter. Almost unlimited reversal options are the only defensive measures in the player's repertoire, as wrestlers can now block when holding down the reversal button before a strike is thrown from the opponent, bob and weave as the player rotates the analog stick alongside blocking, and even dodge roll. Combo breakers exist by pressing the same strike button at the same time as an opponent is throwing the type of strike or performing a grapple attack, becoming a valuable tool in stopping combos mid-string. In place of the reversal and stamina meters is the special meter that fills up via the momentum bar below it. The special meter segmented bars can be used in various forms, including a single bar allowing a wrestler to escape the ring in one swift motion after being driven against the canvas. 2 special bars will be necessary to execute the returning payback maneuver, including spewing green mist or landing a low blow. With 3 bars, a wrestler has the ability to pull off those signature maneuvers or a potential match-ending finisher. The combat system is a lot more player-friendly and reminiscent of the pre-8th generation entries, for better and for worse. The detrimental aspects are issues like hit detection still being a problem. The somewhat odd control layout changes, including holding down the R2 trigger on the PlayStation controller and hitting one of the strike buttons to perform a signature maneuver or finisher, and the odd decision to place the camera lower than ever that it becomes difficult seeing reversal opportunities during multi-person bouts. For some, the return of the button mashing interface in regards to stopping pins or submissions may be disappointing. Thankfully, for those who don't like the button mashing system, players can switch it back to the timed minigame of past WWE 2K games. The modes are hefty as always, with a couple of big additions. 2K Showcase stays true to the formula established years ago, with the player going through, in this case, 12 matches wonderfully recreated via in-game objectives, giving way to the character models fading into actual footage from said match that occurred anywhere from 25 to 2 years ago. The presentation of 2K Showcase, be it the interviews or in-game cutscenes, are mostly masterfully done. The biggest issue with 2K Showcase mode is here again, in that there aren't any checkpoints between the objectives needed for completion to activate the next cutscene. Without these checkpoints, and the matches themselves potentially going unusually long, can make the mode incredibly exhaustive, especially if something goes wrong and the player has to restart the entire match. Like 2K Showcase, My Rise is a familiar take on what's been done in the past with my career. After crafting a created wrestler to control, the player has the option of taking part in a variety of matches, starting at their time training in the WWE Performance Center to working on a show like Monday Night Raw, where they may become the brand's top champion. By wrestling frequently, players will earn fans that really has no bearing on their status in WWE, upgrade points needed to improve a wrestler's attributes like striking power and defense, and make decisions to control their standing as either a fan favorite or a villain. The character being beloved or hated is the most important aspect of My Rise, as it will unlock different stories and matches depending on what side of the fence the character is on, meaning players won't be able to see everything the mode has to offer in just 2 playthroughs. One is a female and one is a male character. The biggest issue with My Rise is a lack of continuity. For example, one early story that can play out is the male main character reaching NXT and battling Damian Priest for the North American Championship after an extensive and interesting story. Literally the next show after winning the title, a post will show up on the main character's social media timeline regarding Samoa Joe being upset about having to defend the North American Championship, to which the player can opt to challenge Joe and win the title again without any consequences or follow-up. This rather haphazard storytelling and continuity is less like the recent My Career offerings that kept things pretty linear, and more similar to the unpredictable career mode presentation from SmackDown 2 Know Your Role on the original PlayStation. Universe mode is mostly the same, with the only real addition being the ability to play as a single wrestler without the option of simulating the wrestler's matches like every other match in Universe mode. Coupled with following a superstar's journey through Universe mode are the options dictated by Curator mode, where the player will set a wrestler's temporary goal like starting a tag team or defending their newly won championship. GM mode makes its WWE 2K debut with Mygm. At the start, the player is given the option of choosing their brand, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or NXT UK. An opposing show, the player's representative general manager, including a created GM, a rival GM, and how long the season will last between 15, 25, and 52 weeks. As the season progresses following the initial draft, players can choose at least 8 wrestlers initially for their brand. So does the availability of different arenas to rent, utilizing bigger pyrotechnic setups, and seeing the new pool of talent not drafted to any show that can be hired anywhere from a month to indefinitely. Managing egos and keeping promises to wrestlers can improve morale, or be hampered by losing streaks, or the head honcho Triple H deciding a star shouldn't wrestle on that same week the player's GM promised a particular wrestler a title opportunity. This talent management system is coupled by the implementation of power cards that can be purchased with the brand's budgeted money. These cards vary in their applications, such as giving a wrestler a day off at the spa that restores their stamina to avoid said wrestler from suffering a major injury, or hindering the opposing GM's show by doubling this cost for the week. But not all is great about Mygm. The first issue that rears its ugly head is only one male and one female championship are available in the mode. Unlike past GM mode offerings in SmackDown vs. Raw, where all the titles were available, there are no options for having the Tag Team Championship or even the NXT North American title up for grabs if the player is running NXT. This title limitation is coupled by the fact there are only a few match options when setting up a card: singles, tag team, TLC, tables, Hell in a Cell, and Extreme Rules. Why the option not to have triple threat, battle royal, or even elimination chamber matches in this mode is beyond comprehension. In regards to booking a show, regular televised events can only have 3 matches and 2 promo segments, while major pay-per-view shows have anywhere between 4 and 5 matches and 3 to 4 promo segments. And last but certainly not least is the odd addition of a class system to the wrestlers. Each wrestler has a definitive class that they are associated with, including striker, giant, or specialist. Depending on the classes, certain wrestlers won't have good matches together, especially if they're in the same class. Instead, the mode wants players to match wrestlers like Giant and Cruiserweight to produce the best match possible. In the old GM mode, a wrestler's popularity influenced the match rating and made the mode that much more entertaining, as players could see the rise and fall in popularity of certain wrestlers while micromanaging matches and rivalries. Playing through the matches instead of simulating them will not change the match's star rating, just the outcome, making it no point to actually play through Mygm mode bouts unless the player wants a particular person to win. This rigid nature of making a player work in the system instead of crafting their show is the biggest detriment to what should have been a layup of a mode presentation, considering the template was already there with both the original GM mode from 2005 and Universe mode, with the latter's customization options. Following up on the major issues connected with Mygm is the chore known as My Faction. Like the 2K Towers of the past, My Faction is an online-only offline experience, where players must complete certain challenges and criteria to earn points and medals. The big difference between My Faction and its spiritual predecessors is the fact this mode is built around a card collecting system. These cards are both bought and earned with the prior via in-game currency gained through successful matches or purchased with VC that can only be obtained by the player spending real money. Surprisingly, items actually cost more to buy with VC than with My Faction points earned by playing the mode. The cards themselves are separated by rarity levels with the ability to evolve these cards. Cards also can be used a certain number of times if the player doesn't attach contract cards to boost their match number availability. Like Mygm, each card has a class attached to it that corresponds with how well the card complements with the general manager appointed by the player for their team. Players have 3 options to take their cards into battle. Proving Grounds, matches of 3 difficulty levels where the player earns medals used to unlock the next Proving Grounds chapter. Faction Wars, players take their entire 4-person team to fight another quartet in an 8-man tag in a figurative arcade ladder. and weekly towers, a static series of repeatable matches with rewards that change weekly. Sadly, none of this mode is online in terms of opposition or even comparing how well the player is doing to their friends. There are some more big issues with the mode, including certain characters, mostly legendary figures and old attires from modern wrestlers, and arenas are locked by this mode. This disappointment is coupled by the fact my faction is a pure grind in terms of minimal completion, including the lifetime set of challenges where the players will have to do everything from completing 84 daily challenges, there are only 3 daily challenges available a day, and earn a cumulative 50,000 My Faction points, with most matches dishing out between 100 and 300 MFP. Essentially, My Faction is an extensive mobile game that replaced a pretty enjoyable simple system that was the 2K Towers. The usual online modes are also available, including Quick Play, where gamers can jump into a bout about to happen, lobbies for players who want to play together while changing match stipulations, and tonight's main event that features an ever-changing stipulation such as having an Extreme Rules match with only custom wrestlers. Of course, lag and connection quality can mean the difference between landing that detrimental reversal or succumbing to a finisher. Creation options are both plentiful and disappointing. Character creation is still really good, including the option of adding imported pictures like faces and logos, the latter being associated with other creation offerings including create an arena and create a Money in the Bank briefcase. On the opposite end of the creation satisfaction spectrum is the removal of the advanced option in Create an Entrance, where players could mix and match entrance motions, pyro, and lighting. Certain creation tools in terms of layered clothing has been removed as well. Technically, 2K22 is a lot better than 2K20, including less animation and graphical glitches. The only hard crash occurred with My Rise during a conversation, but the autosave system allowed for no progress lost, other than the interaction that led to the crash, and was easily repeated without a subsequent issue. Those who pre-ordered the higher-priced editions were allowed to play the game 3 days early. In that time, though, server stability was a problem that could be a precursor to hindering My Faction and any online options in the next year. Frame rates were surprisingly consistent even when 8 wrestlers were fighting at the same time. The graphics are mostly incredible, with a majority of the wrestlers looking like themselves. Commentary is a lot better, but not necessarily impressive. The sound mixing is definitely a mixed bag, including Ray's narration being overwhelmed by the generic music that plays during the 2K Showcase matches. And the crowd noise really wanes after the bell rings, and doesn't have things like dueling chants or appropriate reactions after some big spots. Following the disaster that was 2K20, Visual Concepts had a lot to make up for, and mostly did just that with 2K22. The potential once again is there for making the optimum WWE game if they can improve on some of the modes, specifically Mygm, tighten up the hit detection issue that has plagued these games for years, and bring back some of those creation options that were in the previous games. But for now, WWE 2K22 is the go-to WWE video game experience of the last 5 years. If you've been craving a fun wrestling game not rooted in simulation, having a plethora of modes, though some are stronger than others, and looks fantastic, this is the WWE game you've been waiting for. There are definitely some issues with the gameplay, mode presentation, and reduction in regards to creation options. With that being stated, the overall technical stability, and most importantly, fun factor, astoundingly helps make WWE 2K22 hit differently, as they promoted it would, in the best way possible.
And this match will head back to the big, vicious.